Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm really happy to have you here with me today where we are going to process a ton of produce that we picked out of the garden earlier this morning. If you would like to see that video where we actually harvested all this produce, I'll link it for you up here and down in the show notes below. Now we need to actually turn all of this produce into some food for the winter. So let me show you what we have to work with. We have a whole bunch of cabbages here, and you can see that some of these cabbages have split. So I am just going to be cutting these up, and we'll probably use these steamed or something like that with a meal in the next couple of days. But these nice big cabbages here that have not split, we're going to be turning those into sauerkraut. We have a bunch of cucumbers here that we picked. We actually ate some of them for lunch today. The rest of them, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. We'll get to that. I have some raspberries that I actually need to wash right now. And those will be vacuum sealed and put into the freezer. So we have some cauliflower here. We have a ton of cauliflower here, and yet even more over here. So what we're gonna do with this is I have a pot of water here that I've already started to heat up. So we're gonna crank that up, and we are going to blanch this, and we are going to freeze it. We're also gonna freeze dry some of it as well. And over here, we have more. We have a whole bunch of pickling cucumbers. These ones I've already started cutting off the ends, as you can see over here. So I always take the flower end off of my pickling cucumbers because that flower end has an enzyme in it that can make your pickles a little bit softer. So anything we can do to make our pickles more crunchy, the better. So we're gonna slice these up with our food processor and make some sweet pickles out of these, like a bread and butter style pickle. And we're also going to add a little bit of our cauliflower over here because we really like pickled cauliflower. So we're gonna throw that into our bread and butter pickles. It's delicious. So we have 19 more jars of relish here. So this is the zucchini relish that I started making with you the other day, I think 3 days ago. I don't even know anymore. The days are all starting to blend together. So this is going to be my last batch for the year. So now we do have enough relish. We do use a lot of relish, usually 2 of these jars per meal. But that should do us for the next 12 months, which is awesome. And last up, we have some banana peppers here. There's some other peppers in here as well. And we are going to actually make a hot pepper and apple jam, which I'm really excited about because I love the combination of sweet type of things like apples with hot peppers, and I like that with cheese and crackers. So this is a new recipe, and it is out of the Weck Small Batch Preserving, and it is on page 71. We're also going to use the bread and butter pickle recipe out of the same cookbook. For our bread and butter pickles, we actually need to have these sitting in some salt water, some really cold salt water for a couple hours. So we'll get these ones all done up first, and then we'll move on to our jam. So I'm just going to double check the size of this and make sure that these are all right. So these are kind of thin for a bread and butter pickle, but I'm in a bit of a rush to get this all done, so I'm going to call that good. Okay, we have our pickles here, so I'm just going to fill this up with cold water, add a little bit of salt to it. And I'm gonna drop a bunch of our cauliflower and just get this moving. So the reason that we want to blanch vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower and some other ones is because we want to alter the enzymes in them so that they maintain their color and their texture after they've been frozen. If we were to throw these into the freezer like this without blanching them, they would come out, they could be mushy, they could be kind of really tough and not cook up nicely. So we just want to cook them basically for around 3 minutes or so. And there we go. Just enough to alter those enzymes, enough. Set our timer and pop back over here and continue on with our processing of our pickling cucumbers. So when it comes to multitasking, this is a skill that I have definitely developed and honed over the years of preserving the way that I do. And it's kind of been out of necessity, quite honestly, because as you can see, some days there's just multiple things coming out of the garden, and a lot of the stuff needs to be dealt with in a timely manner, like the pickling cucumbers, for instance. They just do best if they're dealt with pretty much right away. You can stick your pickling cucumbers in some cold water and leave them overnight, and they will maintain crispness that way as well, but it is best if you can get them dealt with right away. And because I'm going to have an equal amount of produce probably coming out of the garden tomorrow, I need to get these counters cleaned off. Otherwise, I would be very overwhelmed if I left it all to start to back up in my kitchen. I've just learned over the years it's best to just get it done when it is there to do. And the reality is once the end of October hits, we're not going to be in this season, and we're going to be able to move into the slower pace of winter. So we're going to work our tail off now and look forward to that slower pace of winter. And there's our timer for our cauliflower. I have all my canning lids in the sink that I need to grab out. So what we're gonna do here is just scoop out our cauliflower, some cold water running on it, and then I can just reuse this hot water, and it doesn't take it long to have to come back up to or to get it back up to a boil again, rather than if I was to dump the whole thing out and start with even tap hot water. I save myself a lot of time doing it this way. And I can have all of this cauliflower blanched and ready. Whew, that was hot. Blanched and ready to vacuum seal and freeze dry. My freeze dryer is just running full out right now. It's full right now with zucchini. And then I have a batch, what do I have in the freezer waiting to go in? I think broccoli and cauliflower actually, in my extra trays in the freezer. So, I don't know, maybe I'll just end up vacuum sealing all this. However, we are processing a steer next week, and that's that red one that got into my garden. And my freezer space, I talk about this a lot, but this time of year, my freezer space is definitely high in demand real estate. So I don't know, I'm not sure what the best idea is. That made short work of all those pickles. So we're going to core, peel, and then chop, and I'm going to use my dicing blade for my food processor. This is one of the things I love about this food processor so much. It's awesome. This one is a KitchenAid, and it's a good one. I had the Cuisinart one before, which lasted me for a long, long time. That one's also a good one, but I love this dicing blade. It saves us so much time, especially when we're doing things like salsa. It's fantastic. So we're gonna peel these up. Oh, shoot. Whoops. Oh, darn, I had both blades in there. So now we have some really finely chopped apple. Whoops, got ahead of myself there. Oh, that looks perfect, actually. I can tell just by looking at it. Yep, we're perfectly at 4 cups. Okay, so now I am just going to get all of these chopped up as well for this recipe, and I'll be back with you when we're all done. Into our pot, we're going to add our 1 cup of banana peppers and our 4 cups of apples, half a teaspoon of salt, 1.5 cups of sugar, quarter cup of honey, quarter cup of lemon juice, a teaspoon of ground ginger, teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're going to bring this up to a boil and then simmer it for 5 minutes and add some more cauliflower. So I chopped up our banana peppers, or sliced them, banana peppers slash jalapeno peppers, so they are all sliced like so, and we are going to turn these into a cowboy candy. So traditionally, cowboy candy is just jalapenos with a lot of sugar and some vinegar. This is going to be a little bit more mild with just a few jalapenos in there and our banana peppers, which is the way I personally like them. So I read the recipe incorrectly. I actually had to boil it on medium-high, I'm talking about the jam now, for 15 minutes and then turn it down and simmer it on low for an additional 5 minutes. So it's just about done now. Because of the apples, it doesn't need any added pectin. Apples have natural pectin in them, and just cooking them down the way I am allows that pectin to come out and make the jam nice and thick. So I'll show you that in a sec. Once I am finished with that, I'm going to use that same pot to put our banana peppers in and make our cowboy candy. Just about finished bagging up all of the cauliflower, and the last batch of cauliflower is blanching in the pot over there. I need to do the cherries, and then by the time we're done all that and processing all that, we should be able to do our cucumbers. They'll have been in there for just about 2 hours at that point, and then we'll be all done for the day. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, I'm just gonna give this jam a try. And there's not a lot of like actual jamminess. It is pretty chunky like that, you can see. That's gonna be smoking hot. Definitely has some kick, but the combination of the sugar and the apples is just perfect with a little bit of that heat. Okay, so friends, I decided to add a little bit of applesauce to this because it was just not quite jammy enough in between those chunks of apples. And I'm just gonna give this a taste now, but I think that's gonna be a better texture. Yeah, I can tell already. That's a better texture for sure. Definitely, I just used a little bit of my own canned applesauce. So now we can get these jarred up. We're gonna use some cute little 1/2 pint jars. I almost never use 1/2 pint jars, but this is gonna be something that we'll just use a little bit of at a time. Okay, wash our rims. And we are going to steam can these at, how long? For 15 minutes, or water bath, if you would prefer. So now for our cherries. We're gonna take our pitted cherries and put them in this pot. Splash of lemon juice, little bit of sugar, couple cups, and then water, and we'll heat that up and get that canning as well. Okay, so for this recipe we need 3 pounds of fresh peppers, which we have over there, not quite that much, but couple cups of apple cider vinegar, 6 cups of granulated sugar. So remember, this is a candied jalapeno, so lots of sugar. Half a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of celery seed, 3 teaspoons of granulated garlic, and then you can add some extra cayenne pepper if you want, which I'm not going to do for today. Half a teaspoon of celery seed, garlic, and turmeric. I'm going to bring this up to a boil now and boil it for around 5 minutes or so. Add a touch more sugar to our cherries because of course they are sour cherries. We cannot grow sweet cherries in our climate, but sour cherries do very well. Just gonna wait until our sugar is dissolved here and then we will get these jarred up. I am just gonna jar these ones in half pints because I am not sure what I'm gonna use them for, whether I'll make pie filling out of them or ice cream topping or whatever. Okay, so my plan here is I'm going to steam can these for 20 minutes, these cherries. They're just about ready to go into the jars. And then I am going to put the cowboy candy in with my spicy apple jam in the electric pressure canner. I have it set to the water bath setting. So I'm gonna do that. And then I think I'm gonna get the kitchen cleaned up, take a little bit of a break, and come back and do the pickles a little bit later this evening. I'll either do that or I'll add more ice to them and put them outside where it's cool and do them in the morning. I haven't decided yet, but either way, I'll bring you along with me because we're gonna try a different recipe than we used last time. The recipe I did last time, I really liked. I was sharing in the last video that I made bread and butter pickles that I had been using the same recipe for years and years and years, but I'd been using a pre-packaged pickling spice mix that something in the flavor of it changed in the last couple of years and we're not loving it as much. So I tried a new recipe and we did like that one. But I'm also going to try this one. It's a very similar recipe, just slightly different ratios for the ingredients, and see if we can't find a recipe that we just think is absolutely perfect. So I'll get all of these jarred up, get those in the canner. I'll show you the finished product when they come out of the canner. And then I haven't decided whether I'm going to do these bread and butter pickles tonight or whether I'll just add some more ice to them and put them outside for the night because it's nice and cool in the evening, and can them up in the morning. But I'll decide that. Either way, I'll make sure that I show you. So I decided to continue on with the processing. I got a second wind. Cabbage, this is one cabbage, if you can believe it, that's been chopped fairly finely here. And there's a couple of tablespoons of salt, and I'll show you the next step for making sauerkraut in just a second. So normally what I would do is 2 cabbages to 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt, but since these cabbages were so huge, I just did 1. So we're gonna do 2 batches, so 2 big bowls of sauerkraut. And we are now going to do the bread and butter pickles. So the last recipe that I did bread and butter pickles with, we actually cooked the pickles and the cucumbers and the onions in the brine for about 10 to 15 minutes before we jarred them up. In this recipe, we put our cucumbers and our onions right into the jars, and then we pour the brine on top of that and then process them, which actually works much better for me because I did not measure all of these cucumbers. There's a huge pot there, and I'd rather not do that, so I'm just going to make a really big batch of brine, and if I end up with extra brine, I'll just use that later on in the week because I'm pretty sure we're going to have more cucumbers coming out of the garden. This recipe calls for 3 pounds or 9 cups of the cucumbers, 3 cups of onions, a half a cup of canning salt. So that's the salt that goes in and then we rinse off. So I've already done that. I've drained the ice and the water off and rinsed off the extra salt. 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon of celery salt, and 2 tablespoons of yellow mustard. So that's the base recipe for it, and I'm probably going to quadruple this. So now we are going to add our brine, and the recipe recommended that we pack the cucumbers in the jars fairly tightly, just so that they don't end up floating. And I would guess that this is why it is recommended in some other recipes that I've used to cook them in the brine a little bit first. so that they shrink before you put them in the jars. But we'll see how this goes. I have a feeling this is probably going to make for a bit of a crispier pickle. So I'm just going to finish getting these all jarred up and put into the canners. So we will debubble these, of course, because there is going to be lots of space for air to be trapped in amongst those onions and cucumbers. Then we'll wash our rims really well, lid them up, and can them for, how long do these process for? 10 minutes. All right, we ended up with 15 quarts of pickles. I have 3 more in the canner over there. And, oh, those are heavy. I have the cabbage here. So it's been kneaded for 10 minutes and you can see all the liquid in there. So we probably won't need extra brine. I usually don't when I make sauerkraut, and we have half-gallon jars, which are my preferred size of jar for sauerkraut. And now we're basically going to cram our cabbage in here. I like to add garlic to my sauerkraut, so I'm going to throw 2 in the bottom. We basically want to pack in as much cabbage into here as we possibly can and as tightly as we can. So you can see all of that juice there, or liquid. Throw a couple more garlic in there. I am going to need another jar. We actually ended up with almost 3 half-gallons. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take a cabbage leaf and we're just going to cut it so that it can fit over the top of our sauerkraut here, because we need our sauerkraut to stay down and submerged below the liquid. And then I have some glass weights that I can put on. So we're going to put this in there and in there. And our pickle pucks on top. Hey, hen. Making some sauerkraut.
Yum.
I know, it's so tasty, isn't it? Now we're going to put our pickle pipes on the top. And then we're going to leave these to ferment for 7 to 14 days. And I'll show you when we're all done. Okay, so the roundup at the end is all of the sauerkraut over here sitting in a tray. We have our cherries here, and we ended up with 9 of those. We have 3 of the cowboy candy, 16 of the pickles here, and 4 of the jam. And I feel pretty good about that. All right, friends, I am definitely done that second wind. I am really tired, ready for bed. I hope that you enjoyed spending some time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.